he knows now his best chance, I think, of avoiding this punishment and potentially further down the line is to win the election. And that would be all of America effectively being the jurors.
Hi guys! Hi guys! It's Brittany! Hey guys, and welcome back.
No!
Hi guys, and welcome back to another episode of Life Uncut. I'm Brittany.
I'm Laura.
Why are you saying no and yelling at me across the room?
No!
We were just having a laugh about what we were going to call our podcast 5 years ago.
So, okay, when we very first started Life Uncut, we had brainstorming sessions. We all had ideas. My idea gets brought up as being poo-pooed all the time.
It's because it's the only one I remember. I wish I remembered what I put forward more. But the only one, we had all these, and when we say brainstorming, we had a coffee, we had a piece of paper and pencil. It was a pencil. I don't even think it was a pen.
Babe, that's a brainstorm session.
No, but why did we have a pencil?
I don't know, but we wrote it down on a notepad.
Sketch artists?
Lined on a lined notepad. And one of my podcast name ideas was Coming Up Roses, which at the time, coming off the back of The Bachelor, I thought it was brilliant. And
I vetoed
5.5 years on, we can all agree that it wasn't brilliant. But at the time, it felt very good. Felt good in my bones.
Yeah, it never felt good in my bones.
It never landed for Britt.
But then I suggested a lot of names that you didn't like as well. I just don't remember them. The only one that stuck with me is Coming Up Roses because I was like, I think we should steer away from just being like
The Bachelor.
The Bachelor, and that's all we are.
Imagine now, The Bachelor's not even around.
Yeah, it would be canned.
The Brittany Hockley show didn't really do it for me either.
Oh yeah. Well, that was one.
What was that? Oh yeah. Did you just turn into my teenage brother?
Yes, I did.
Hello, welcome.
Hey guys, it's Britt and Laura here on the Brittany Hockley show.
On Coming Up Roses. Anyway, good to be back.
How was your weekend? Laura and I both went away this weekend for a long weekend. Coincidentally, I booked it first. I just want to say that.
Actually, you didn't. I just didn't tell you about it because we went away for Matt's brother's 40th birthday. It's been booked for like 4 months. I just don't know the weekend and
Likely story.
Nothing in my life is like things happen around me and then I just show up wherever I'm told to be.
I know.
So yeah, so Matt had already planned that entire trip. But anyway, you did post a photo yesterday from Zulu and Zephyr store and I was like, Brittany, you're 400 meters away from me.
I also already knew that too. I walked in there and they're like, Laura came in here yesterday. Oh. Yeah, they're like, and I was like, of course she did.
I was like, I see that bitch enough. I don't need to see her on my holiday.
No, so Laura and I both went to Byrne for separate events. My event was I'm in love and that was it. And Laura's event was a birthday party. But we chose not to see each other.
To be fair, though, I did say this because I was talking to my mother-in-law about it and she was like, oh, is Brittany going to come visit? And I was like, Brittany's here on a romantic holiday with her boyfriend who she hasn't seen for 5 months.
I see Laura every day.
She's with Ben. She doesn't want to see me. And probably more than that, she doesn't want to see my children. She doesn't want to come and hang out at the kids' pool at Elements with my entire family. There's no part of me, not one single iota of my entire body that's offended by this. I'm okay with it and I understand.
Genuinely, it wasn't just that. If we had more time there, for sure. But we didn't actually stay in Byron. We stayed up the coast and we went to Byron just for the day to like, I'm just trying to show Ben parts of Australia. So like, with very little amount of time, it is like we're in the army. Like I have a regime. He wakes up in the morning and I'm like, this is what we're doing today. This is what we're doing. This is where we're going. Because I'm trying to fit all this stuff in. If it was up to me, we'd just lay in bed and probably have sex all day. But he wouldn't see any of Australia in that.
He's like, Australia is amazing.
Yeah, he's
it's
like,
so
warm.
warm.
I love it here.
It's very moist.
It's so warm. It's like a rainforest.
Sorry, Keeshia. Keisha's sitting there already disappointed in us. Things have spiraled out of control and we're only at 8 o'clock in the morning.
It is funny. Now, we've spoken about this on the podcast before many a times. The fact that, you know, I've been with Ben a bit over 1.5 years now, but we're always perpetually in the honeymoon stage because we spend so many months apart. Then we spend a couple of months together and it's amazing. But you're not really like in that deep living together constantly, finding out about each other. But every time we spend these chunks of time together, we find out something else. And it's not that it's bad, but I have figured out
it's
now.
not that it's good.
No, it's great.
Okay.
But this one thing is the only thing I've realized now that I can look back over the nearly 2 years of time. It's the one thing we always fight about, and I know we'll never, ever be able to do it without fighting, and that is any form of physical activity, like any sport, golf, mini golf, tennis, badminton, frisbee.
It's the competition element. You
It's
guys
the
fight when there's a comp.
competition.
Yeah.
So we go to play anything and I just want to go and play for fun. Like it's mainly him. I just want to play for fun, but immediately we're like ripping each other's jugular out because he's so competitive and he takes everything so seriously that we had a full on brawl not a brawl, but like an argument on the tennis court at this place. And I know there were people listening, and I was like, we are leaving. It was like a child. I was like, get your racket. We are leaving.
What were you fighting about?
Because he was angry I wasn't good enough. On the tennis, he was like, he's like, Britt, you've played better before. I know you can do it. I'm like, well, obviously I can't do it right now.
You're like,
I was like, because the balls are not going in. The balls are not going in.
Have you ever questioned like what? Because like I'm all for competition, and I'm all for like, especially as a parent, like making sure that your kids have drive and like, having that competitive edge. I've got nothing against that. But have you ever wondered what kind of parent he will be in terms of like, he'll be like, drop and give me 20. That wasn't good enough, Jimmy.
I actually think I'll be that parent.
Yeah.
Yeah. But that's how I was brought up. My parents were very much like encouraging of us in our sporting.
So am I.
Yeah. Like they were like, if you're not first, you're late. No, they weren't. Drop an elbow. No, they weren't like that. But like, I just think, okay, that's the one thing that I'm going to have to accept that I love, but I'm either going to have to bite the bullet or we're going to have a divorce. Like, I don't know which way it's going to go.
I also think you should be expecting that when you choose to be in a relationship with someone who's a professional sports player.
Yeah, football, not tennis.
Yeah, true. But it kind of like, doesn't it just like bleed out into every sport? It's the nature of it, right?
Yeah. Last year's fight was over table tennis in Hamilton Island. That's what we had a fight about. Anyway,
when you say fight, like to what degree?
Oh, so I'm proper surly. I'm like, you've ruined my day.
You're also grudgy. That's the thing that's the problem. Is like it would happen and then you would hold on to it for the rest of the day.
No, I don't. It's actually funny. We walk away and I'm pissed off and I'll turn around and I'll be like, I'm sorry I said that, and storm away. And he's like, well, I'm sorry I did it too. And then we walk away holding hands. Like that's how we fight. It's cute. But we know that we're disappointed in each other's behavior. But we hold hands and like walk off and make up. But it's just one of these things I've accepted. So that was what we fought about over the weekend tennis.
Okay, well, speaking of us not seeing each other on the weekend, Matt and I made a stupid reel whilst we were in Byrne because his podcast host, so like his co-host on Two Doting Dads, Ash Wiggs, rocked up. Now, you might look at that video and think I was in on the joke, but I want it to be fucking known. I had no idea that Ash was coming on our family holiday. So it was day one and we were going to see our really good friends Josh and Ash, who have a little baby Sage. I haven't seen them in ages. And I said to Matt, oh, what time is Ash getting to dinner? And Matt looks at me really confused and he goes, what do you mean? And I was like, Ash, what time's Ash coming to dinner? I'm speaking about Ash, our friend,
Ash.
a female Ash, who we're going to dinner with that evening. And he looks at me and he goes, oh, did you know? And I was like, sorry, what? Do I know what? And he's like,
yeah.
Do you know about Ash? And I was like, yeah. Are we talking about the same thing? Because we're going for dinner with Ash tonight. And he goes, oh yeah, I forgot to tell you. So Ash might be in town. And I was like, he might be in town?
Or he is in town.
So there was because like Stonerwood is one of their big sponsors for their podcast, right? And there was a Stonerwood festival happening. And Matt had asked me if I wanted to go and just pop into this Stonerwood festival. And I was like, yeah, sure, I'll go and check it out. Like no problems. Unbeknownst to me, that during him organising this with me and us getting a babysitter so that we could go and do this thing, he also had invited Ash and Ash was flying up. And I was like, oh, okay, cool. So you're actually going to the Stonerwood Festival with Ash, not with me. That's fine. But I was like, where's Ash staying? And he was like, oh, yeah, he's just staying the night at Elements. And I was like,
you're like, he's in the second room that we hired in our villa.
He's on the pull-out trundle bed. Anyway, it was very funny. I was just kind of
like, just don't go into the closet tonight.
There's Ash just there wearing my robe and my slippers. I was like, why didn't you just tell me? It was so, I genuinely don't care. It was just weirder that he decided to kind of omit all the details. Anyway, Ash rocked up.
Do you think you would have cared, not against Ash, but do you think if he gave you enough notice? Because obviously he's made a decision. Matt has waited up. Matt has been like, I can either let her know and she's in on it, or I can pretend I forgot. So obviously his train of thought is like, this is the best case scenario is I pretend I forgot and then it's too late and he's already there.
But also when he said that, I was like, why would you pretend like, do you think I'm a psycho? Like, how do you think I'm going to react? Are you like trying to minimize and manage like
the psychoness?
Yeah, like why is your reason for keeping this a secret? Anyway, I didn't go psycho and actually was fine. I got to the Stonerwood Festival.
You were doing that
and
thing
I
that we talked about last week where you're like,
I'm
cool. I am the cool girl. Yeah.
You can hang out with your friends on our family holiday.
Yeah,
it's fine.
Yeah, I'll just be over here.
So we went to the Stonerwood Festival. I walked in. It's been a long time since I've been to a festival, guys. Like, love Stonerwood. Great beer. Do I love loud outdoor music when it's raining and it was fully raining and it was a festival and
But it's not like a
yeah,
is
no,
it?
it is.
It
There's two
was.
different areas. There's an area with laser beams and people had their
Laser
kids
beams?
there and shit.
Sharks with laser beams on their head?
Sharks with laser beams?
Sharks with frickin' laser beams attached to their heads.
And then there was another area which was like a big outdoor on stage band. Wow, I'm a loser.
Wow, I'm a loser. I love that discovery, that moment.
So we were there for a while and then I think I was there for maybe half an hour and I looked around at this one point and it was so fucking loud. It was so loud. And my hearing is not great. And so I find loud noises hurt my ears. Okay, guys? So I was there for about half an hour and then I just looked at Matt and I was like, you do this. You have this moment with Ash. I'm going to go back and put the kids to bed.
But this was Pat's plan.
No, to be fair, we'd organised a babysitter. We were all supposed to stay out together. And then I was like, do you know what? The babysitter can go home. I would prefer to be with my children putting them to bed
You go
than
to
be
the
here.
instance.
Yeah.
I'll go home.
I'm too old for this shit. I literally looked around and I was like, I'm too old for this.
Even for the onstage band.
For the onstage loud band hurt my ears. Anyway, that was it. Look, we have a great episode for you today. Now, the thing that has been happening in the world that everyone is talking about, but maybe not everyone knows the details around, like the specific details, is Donald Trump and everything that's been happening with his criminal court case over the weekend and Stormy Daniels, who is an adult star. She is the ground zero of this whole court case. I spent the whole weekend Googling and reading up on this because I found it absolutely fascinating. And there was part of me, I mean, if you know the story.
Laura's at the festival with the onstage band Googling Donald Trump.
So shows the point of life.
She wasn't a
I mean.
loser. She is now.
I found it so fucking fascinating because I was
Yeah.
like, how is this adult star? She single-handedly brought down Trump. And to think about the fact that there has been so many cases that have been brought against him, but this is the first one that actually has been prosecuted. And now this all happened over the weekend. And we wanted to get someone on to talk through the intricacies of this. So we have Charles Croucher joining us in the podcast in a little bit. He's a journalist and also a US political expert as well. But before we get into that conversation, Britt, there was something I wanted to share with you, which is less highbrow. Actually, it's very lowbrow. It's so lowbrow that it has to do with the anus. That's how far down in the low of the brow it is.
That's pretty mid-brow, I'd say.
Would you say? Well, it's not about feet, is it? It's about buttholes.
No, it's mid-brow, yeah.
Okay, so there is a TikToker. Now, her name
Damn it, I
is...
thought it was going to be about your butthole.
Her name's Baby Charlotte 1. At Baby Charlotte 1.
Okay.
She's a TikToker. She is also an OnlyFans star and she shares a lot of things very openly on her TikTok. Now, I came across this on the weekend and when I was also Googling Donald Trump, funnily enough, and I thought this was so
There's a lot
fucking...
going on at that festival.
I found this so funny, but it was a PSA. And it's a PSA around bullet vibrators and the orifices that you should and shouldn't use them in.
Oh, I can see
Have a
where this is
listen to
going.
this.
This is a PSA. Do not put them little bullet vibes anywhere in the back region because I am currently about to head off to A&E because one is stuck in mine. And I'm sure you can hear that. This is going to be very embarrassing.
Okay, so she's sitting in her car. She's doing a live PSA as she's about to go into emergency because she has a bullet vibrator stuck in her asshole and it's still vibrating. You can audibly hear it in the background of the video. She's visibly distressed. The poor girl is crying. Like she looks.
Of course she
She
is.
has a bullet vibrator in her bum.
But this is what people... Okay, and I'm not overly shocked because I spent over a decade imaging, like x-raying people with things like their buttholes, right? This was a huge part of my job as a radiographer.
How many times a day do you reckon you'd have, or times a week do you think you'd have people with foreign object up their backsides?
It changed markedly depending on where I was. When I was working more regional, not as often. When
King's
I was
Cross?
when I was in the city hospitals, all the time. It was standard. Like query on the sheet, it has a question mark and then it just says FO in anus. So query, foreign object, anus. That was how we would get a referral. And you just know that someone else has slipped on something in the shower because that's what everyone says. But I cannot tell you, it's such a common misconception. People don't understand what the butthole is. People don't understand the anus. The anus is a vacuum. That's what it works at. Like,
Don't tell me that you don't learn things here at Life Uncut.
exactly. It acts like a vacuum. So like obviously when you do a poop, you're pushing out.
Wait,
right?
do you want that noise of that sound effect again?
That's it. So when you put something up, there's a certain, I don't know what the terminology is like, but there's a certain level. If you had like a pencil, right? there's a certain point that it's going up and up and up and your butt doesn't really want to take it. And then it flips and it sucks it up. It goes, and that's it. And there's a point of no return. And quite often it's too far. It's gone, it's deep, and it can travel all the way up your bowel. I have seen a Rexona deodorant can up near the diaphragm. Like that's what it looks like. A whole can of Rexona.
Look, if it's not flared, don't put it in there, I think is the lesson for everyone.
That's not the lesson.
Yes, it is. If you're going to stick things in your ass that are vibrators, make sure the base of it is flared. But I wanted to read this to you because, I mean, that was enough of a story. I was like, funny, ha, 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 but also decent PSA. Like, let's not go sticking things in our assholes that aren't supposed to go in there. But this article came up on Pedestrian, right? Pedestrian wrote, they did like a piece on this. But I just wanted to read you the very first line of this article. The publisher is Michael D. Lorio. Sometimes all a girl wants to do is go full feral Kirby mode and absorb everything and anyone into their hole. Imagine typing that out as the first line, being like, I'm a journalist, and that's the first line you put together to describe this story.
Also not true.
It's also,
women don't walk around being like, what can I suck up there today?
It's also so weird that this dude who's a journalist has put this together and written that. I was like, is this you living out your fantasies? Like, I'm all for chicks who want to like have anal play, but women are not walking around wanting to consume the universe in their assholes.
Like we're vacuuming up our house naked with our butthole. Do you know what I've seen up butts before?
I would love to know the list.
I have seen a toilet brush. A toilet brush.
The prickly end?
The prickly end. The prickly end, like was a Christmas tree doing all its prickly, tickly things on the inside of the bowel.
How did they get it in there?
The brush itself has the bristles. So I guess when you pushed it up, it would crush down. And then I guess they thought it would open up on the inside. And the head came off the thing, so it got stuck. Yeah. I've seen toy cars, lots of little things. Toy cars. I've seen batteries, very dangerous. You can get lithium poisoning. Do not put a battery inside of you in any capacity.
I know a guy who stuck a toy car in his backside.
Toy cars, you will not believe how common the toy car is. I don't know why. It must be the wheels.
It's an unusual fetish.
Or is it like a male fetish because they have a car crush? Like, you know how men love cars?
So they want to consume it with their asshole?
Because, no, what I'll tell you is, now that I've never thought about it in this much depth, every toy car, I've never seen a woman with a toy car up her butt. It's men. It's always the men.
At the time, because like obviously you're not working as a radiographer anymore. Are you not allowed to talk about those things when it happens? But now in retrospect, you can be like, hey, this once upon a time there was a guy with a car in his butt.
No, you actually can talk about it, but you can't have any defining features. So like you can't say where it was, who it was, when it was. But I can easily say things I've seen up people. Like there's whole forums online that people submit.
The craziest things they've found in people's assholes.
100%. There was one on our forum that was a kangaroo's tail.
Wow.
Yeah, people are pretty crazy.
You know, and we're not here to yuck anyone's yum, but we
I
are
am.
here.
If you're putting a kangaroo tail up, I'm yucking your yum. It's an animal that you've killed and you've chopped its tail off and you're masturbating up your butt with it. I'm yucking your yum in that sense. Any other way you want to masturbate, go crazy. But if it's an animal.
Do you know, I do listen back to this podcast and I think sometimes we try so hard to be PC that sometimes things are said and I'm like, actually, I'm not okay with that.
No, because I'm
But
not
I
okay
was trying so hard to be okay because I didn't want to offend anyone.
Yeah, you're like, anything goes, guys. Do whatever you want. And I'm like, fuck that.
And then I realized, I'm like, actually, no, I'm not okay with it. Actually, funnily about that, when we went out for dinner on the weekend, we met this really lovely girl and she is a lifer, listens to the podcast. And she was like, hey, I just wanted to check something with you. You had Stephen K. Amos on the podcast recently and he told an actually unfiltered story about how he had a dirty kink and he sat on a guy's face and hadn't washed his backside. Anyway, go on back and listen to the podcast episode if you want to. She was like, I just want to point out you and Britt seemed oddly fine with the whole story and I want to let you know how uncomfortable it made me that you guys were okay with it.
I wasn't okay with it. I was like, no, you can't ever do that.
Well, I think we came across to her especially that we were fine with it. And that's kind of what made me realize actually maybe we might need to be a little bit more critical of these things from time to time.
Yeah, let's start now. No animals in your butthole. On that note, let's get into the really serious political...
Speaking of assholes,
let's talk about Donald Trump. That's a great segue.
We were thinking about how we were going to segue this because it's unusual for us
But you found that segue, Laura.
No, it's unusual for us to talk about politics, American politics. It's also unusual for us to have an interview on a Tuesday episode, but we wanted to get someone who was very well versed in American politics, who could explain the nuance as to why this is such a pivotal case. But also, I think if you were looking at this from the outset, it's very easy to go, oh, it's $130,000, which I know is a lot of money, but in terms of American politics, I'm sure is an absolute piss in the ocean. Why was this so impactful, and what was the role that Stormy Daniels played? And is it the affair itself that's problematic? Is it the hush money, or is it how that hush money was paid out to Stormy Daniels that was the criminal part of this case?
I think this is why we wanted to talk about this case, because there are a lot of people that are more interested in American politics right now than ever have been before. And I mean, that's to do with a multitude of things. But a big part of this is, are we really going to potentially have an American president that could be in jail? Like, he has been convicted. Are we really going to have a leader of the free world that is in prison? And B, the fact that this whole case surrounds Stormy Daniels, who was an adult star, it's garnered so much more attention than ever before.
It's literally the stuff that reality TV is made out of.
We are watching history unfold, and that's not me being dramatic. This is going to go down. This is unprecedented. It has never, ever happened before. And it's really worrying that there's a part of me that thinks, I don't want it to. There's a part of me that thinks that Donald Trump is still going to win this campaign. He will become president again. But I think the interesting part of this case is, and a lot of people probably don't understand, from the outset you're seeing the headlines and you're thinking, what's the big deal about paying somebody hush money? But this criminal charge isn't about Donald Trump paying hush money. That's not illegal at all. It's about him falsifying the documents of that hush money. So I think it's really important we get that clear at the start. The second part of this that is very bothersome is the way in which Trump's defense attorney tried to undermine and take down Stormy Daniels purely by slut-shaming her. He tried to say that she was not a reliable witness because she was a very successful adult film star. Part of me is like, to be in 2024 and think that that is an accurate defense to say you like sex publicly, so we can't trust anything you say. And I'm like, how are we doing that in 2024? But then there's another part of me that says, well, it's 2024 and we're probably going to vote in a president that's in prison. It's actually insane.
Yeah, but also this has come at a very interesting time, because obviously this all pertains to stuff that happened in 2016, but now people are saying that the timing is actually like very politically timed to try and undermine his new presidential campaign, and that it's a conspiracy theory from Biden. So we wanted to speak to Charles Croucher, who is an expert on this, to get all of the facts. But before we do introduce him, I just wanted to share something that I think is beautifully enlightening. You guys would all remember the very famous quote from Donald Trump where he said, "You can do anything. Grab him by the pussy." The quote and slogan that's been going around surrounding this campaign is "The pussy grabs back." And we thought that this was a beautiful way to segue into the chat with Charles. A song by Kim Bokebinder.
Pussy grabs back. Pussy grabs back. Pussy grabs back. Pussy, 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 pussy grabs back.
Charles Croucher, journalist and US political expert, is joining us on the podcast today, live from the US, to help us get through all of this Trump drama, because the world has gone crazy. Not a lot of people completely understand what is happening. So, Charles, thanks for joining us this morning.
Anytime. Great to see you.
Charles, I think I would love to start with, like, why is it that this is now so heavily in the media? Why is this all happening when what I guess is circulating around goes back to 2016?
Yeah, it's an old case, right? But this has taken so long for the prosecution to bring this case, and it's come at an interesting time with Donald Trump obviously running for president once again. So this is a case that dates back to 2016, as you said. Effectively, the case itself is pretty minor in terms of the amount of money that was spent, some of the accusations of some business fraud. And while there are 34 charges, a lot of those charges are based off different check stubs. So there are felony counts in there. That's what takes us to the new level. And the real reason that there's so much interest in this case, apart from being Donald Trump, is the question is, what does it do to the election that's coming up? And what does it mean if America is going to vote in a convicted felon, which is a possibility, and you know, if you believe the bookmakers, it is a likelihood in November. So that's the surprise.
When you say it's relatively minor, just for anyone who doesn't necessarily understand what it is that he's been convicted for, can you run us through what that looks like?
Yeah, the accusation, and in fact what has been found guilty of, is paying money through his lawyer to Stormy Daniels, who is a adult film star, and effectively as hush money during the 2016 election. She accuses Donald Trump of that they had an affair, one night stand really, He denies that's ever happened. But the issue was at the 2016 election, Trump had trouble with women voters who were running against Hillary Clinton. And clearly he thought this case would be damaging to him and to his political prospects. So he paid the money to Stormy Daniels as well as a non-disclosure agreement. And that was enough to effectively silence her throughout the campaign with the help of others. Now, usually, if he did that just out of his own money, that would be considered a campaign contribution. So they have to write it down and file the check stuff. Now, any journo looks through Donald Trump's disclosures and sees that he's paid money to Stormy Daniels is going to ask why. So instead, to get around this, he used his lawyer, Michael Cohen, to do it and sort of use through a business transaction. And that's where the falsifying documents charges have come in as well. So it's convoluted. Donald Trump's facing a couple of charges here. This is probably the weakest of the charges, but he's now been found guilty. So this is the one that will stick for now moving forward.
So speaking about the fact that it was back in 2016, it is an old case. It has been brought up now. Obviously, it's getting even more media attention because of the heat surrounding Stormy Daniels, who she is, what she has said, the slander that's gone on within the case. But who has actually brought this case now? Because we've heard Donald Trump blaming Biden, saying, this is his doing. He's trying to bring me down. He's corrupt. But we know it's a state level and it's not Biden. So who and why has been brought up now?
Alvin Bragg is the district attorney in New York. He is a Democrat and was elected. So this is a place where you elect your attorneys and your prosecutors in some of the situations. So, look, there's certainly a political motive for him. He gets a name out of it, but he says he's just administering the law, and the jury found with him. He found they had the case. So that's why Donald Trump is blaming Joe Biden. I think in many ways he's just throwing accusations at whoever he can, right? But Harry Truman, one of the old presidents, used to say, if you can't convince people, you confuse people. So that's what this is, right? You do as much confusing as you can and accuse everyone. Republicans, Donald Trump's side, are at the same time accusing Joe Biden as being old and senile while also masterminding, this court case and legal case against him. So there's perhaps some inconsistencies there, but...
That's actually so funny when you say it like that.
Well, it's true.
Like whatever
right?
suits on that day.
Yeah. It's hard to have those two charges at the same time if you're charging Biden with that. But don't forget, America is deeply divided, and they're divided on the line of the president. And so if Donald Trump's team think they can just get everyone to go back to their corners by accusing this of being a political witch hunt, as he says, then they're going to do it because they think that will win them votes, and it's certainly got them a lot of money over the last few days since the verdict was handed down.
In terms of it being hush money and the way in which you said that it's been transferred to Stormy Daniels through his lawyer, is there anything illegal about paying hush money if it had come through the right channels, or is Kim expecting Stormy Daniels to have some sort of NDA around their nefarious affair? Is that something that is actually totally legal if it had been done through the right processes?
Yeah, I think if she signs the contract and it is a mutually agreed contract between two consenting adults, then it's fine.
Yeah.
It is the falsifying documents, which is why the case has been brought by the state and not by Stormy Daniels herself. She was merely a witness as part of this, and she had a couple of days of pretty tough testimony on the stand as well. So it's the state that brings the case against Donald Trump because it's a crime rather than the person in the civil trial.
So then why, I guess, would she come forward with this? What would be her motivator to come forward and bring this information if she has signed an NDA technically, regardless of where that money came from?
Look, it's hard to assign motivation. She came forward during his term as president. She did an interview with 60 Minutes over here with Anderson Cooper in the US and spoke about what had happened. She said she was sort of ashamed by what went on. And she thought it was, this is a time when Donald Trump was married. Melania had just had the youngest son, Byrne. She was upset by it all. This alleged affair dates back well before the election. It was just at that 2016 campaign when the money was given, and then when he became president, she said she wanted to speak out and have her say. So that's what she's done, and she's certainly done more than that. She's become a household name, particularly here in the United States, and that's brought with it a whole lot of pressure elsewhere that she's dealing with. But so that seems the motivation. Look, it may be political. She certainly doesn't like Donald Trump, and I think she wants him to be president again, so that's beneficial as well.
Yeah, and I think it comes back to the fact that she wants to be believed. Like, this is her story, This is what happened, and she's tried to tell the story. And imagine going up against literally the most powerful person in the world at the time, and his supporters are so ferocious and fierce. And I know that the level of hate she got then, and I have heard the level of hate she's getting now, like the death threats that she's getting from his supporters.
Well, apparently she wore a bulletproof vest. Yeah.
His defense is trying to make her an uncredible witness, which I think is, I was just saying this to Laura before we started. I was like, it's such an unusual tactic to take in 2024 to try to slut shame somebody into being an unreliable witness. Can you just tell us about what the angle they took and what they were saying about Stormy Daniels?
Yeah, I certainly I don't think that would have won them over with any of the women on the jury.
No.
It would have been hard to see that. And I guess if you're defending someone in a US court, there's 12 jurors and you've only got to convince one that your person is innocent. So that may have been the tactic. You put enough dirt on someone and make them doubt her credibility as a witness. They did the same with Michael Cohen, his former lawyer, who has spent time in prison for some of the work and the things he's done with Donald Trump. So, they were the two main witnesses that the prosecution had, along with some other journalists and people that have been involved. But if you can discredit that witness, again, it's the prosecution that have to prove that he did it. And so I think that was the tactic they took with her. Certainly in America in particular, there may have been one or two people on the jury that could have found that compelling. Clearly they didn't, because they all came back with those 34 guilty charges and came back pretty quickly as well.
Yeah, they basically just said because she was an adult worker and liked sex, that she was
untrustworthy,
that you couldn't trust her, which is wild.
Yeah.
Wild.
Sex work is real work, right? That's the.
I mean, it seems crazy, but also nothing surprises me when you're talking about a country where there are a lot of very religious / traditional views, where there are many conflicting views around abortion and everything else. It wouldn't surprise me if there was one person within that jury who had those and upheld those strong sort of traditional values, and that may have worked on them. In terms of how this is going to impact his presidency campaign, is he able to still run for president? Even if he was to say go to jail, could he still run for president?
Yeah, and jail is one of the options. Certainly the smart people over here you speak to don't think that'll happen. They seem to believe that he'll get a fine or a suspended jail sentence. That will be handed down just before the Republican National Convention, which is a big deal in the electoral calendar. It's about the time he was meant to be choosing his vice president and would likely announce that decision. So it's going to take a lot of the oxygen out of that. Even if he is sent to prison, he can run. There is nothing in the Constitution, apart from things like treason, that says you can't run from prison. I think Boston might have elected a mayor from prison once, and so he can. And he would then have the opportunity, perhaps, to pardon himself on the other charges or pardon himself on these charges, which, again, we're just like, the other thing is, this has never happened before. Like, none of this is normal. No. And so it's difficult when you play out what might happen because we just don't know.
I mean, have a listen to this. This is him immediately after he has left the court. He's literally still campaigning the second he walks out the door.
This was a rigged trial by a conflicted judge who was corrupt. It's a rigged trial, a disgrace. They wouldn't give us a venue change. We were at 5% or 6% in this district, in this area. This was a rigged, disgraceful trial. The real verdict is going to be November 5th by the people. And they know what happened here, and everybody knows what happened here. You have a Soros-backed DA and the whole thing. We didn't do a thing wrong. I'm a very innocent man, and it's okay. I'm fighting for our country. I'm fighting for our Constitution. Our whole country is being rigged right now. This was done by the Biden administration in order to wound or hurt an opponent, a political opponent. And I think it's just a disgrace. And we'll keep fighting. We'll fight till the end and we'll win, because our country's gone to hell. We don't have the same country anymore. We have a divided mess. We're a nation in decline, serious decline. Millions and millions of people pouring into our country right now from prisons and from mental institutions, terrorists, and they're taking over our country. We have a country that's in big trouble, but this was a rigged decision right from day one with a conflicted judge who should have never been allowed to try this case, never.
So you can hear him still here. He's not even defending himself anymore. He's at the point where he knows he might not be able to travel to campaign further. So he's literally standing on the steps of the court campaigning.
He's used that courtroom as a campaign stop.
Yeah.
And he's done it time and time again. He knows the world's media there. He knows people are watching on. Now, whether it's cut through, everyone's pretty over politics over here, but you've got the same people coming in again, right? But look, the people that support him will still support him. They've raised money off this. They've used it as that thing, that sort of campaign platform. And now he can go out and actually do the campaigning, whether it works or not. Joe Biden's team will be able to call Donald Trump a convicted felon every day of this election, all the way through to polling day. And for me, I wonder in the suburbs where the really crucial voters, both sides in the last election and one before that, are targeting what they call suburban women. So this is so many times young mums, sort of middle-aged mums, people that are just trying to put food on the table for their kids and go about their life. I wonder if hearing Donald Trump is a convicted felon for 5 months will eventually eat away at some of those voters in those really crucial states up in the Midwest, and that might make it harder to go and pull the lever or punch a box or put a tick or a one next to someone who you know has been charged with these crimes.
Well, I guess that's the question. And you being so heavily on the ground over there, are the general population in America educated enough to be able to know the difference with what is happening here? And I say that in terms of, will people just look at the top line clickbait? One, that he's a convicted felon, and two, on Trump's side, just saying this is a smear campaign that Biden has brought on to bring me down, which, you know, one of those is untrue, and it's obviously Biden. Trump is a convicted felon. But do you think people are too surface level that they'll just take a headline and that's how they'll make their political decision?
I think some will. The other thing over here is the media landscape is so divided. And again, in many ways along the line of the president. So those people that support him, the former president, those people that support him will be watching Newsmax, you know, some of the more right-wing groups on Fox News and beyond, and they will be defending and in some cases parroting Donald Trump's lines. Now, if there are people that are more Democratic-based or liberal, they might be watching MSNBC or listening to their podcast and hearing the same thing, that they think this guy's a convicted felon. So in many ways, people use news over here like a therapy animal, right? You use it to prove that you're right and to reinforce what you've said. So that makes it difficult. The big question is, and the American system is so convoluted and ridiculous when it comes to electing a president, but it's going to come down to effectively 5 states. And you just wonder, I keep going back to the suburbs, what they think of this in the suburbs. Chances are they probably aren't paying attention to the court date. They've seen him go in and out of court. When they switch on after the summer break, before we get towards that November election, this will come up, and it's up to the campaigns now. They will have to sell that message and be convincing and remind voters. You know, the best ad campaigns are the ones that confirm or reaffirm what voters already suspect of someone. I suspect those people that didn't vote for Donald Trump last time suspect he's a crook. And they've now got a pretty good case, the Biden team, to make that argument to the American public. It depends. You know, it's not compulsory voting. It depends who shows up on a Tuesday in November. You know, are those people that voted for Barack Obama, then Donald Trump in 2016, then went back to Joe Biden? Is this enough to move them back to Donald Trump's side? You know, he's the one that has to make up ground on the last election. I think this hurts.
Is he facing any other charges?
He's facing another couple of charges, more compelling charges. One in relation to January 6th that's still being spelt out, and that won't be heard before the election. There's one in Georgia where he asked the Secretary of State and the governor down there to find votes effectively so he could win that state because it was so crucial in 2020. And he's on tape saying it. That one, it seems like a stand-up and knockout case if they ever get up to actually saying it, because there's been all kinds of trouble with the prosecution and perceptions of bias down there. So, look, I don't think either of those cases will be heard before the election, and that's where we get into that uncharted territory. If he's elected again, he can pardon himself from these cases.
What do you mean by finding votes?
He asked to find votes. They were down by, the margin was around 12,000. Someone will know in the comments and know what the actual margin was. But he is on tape asking him to find the amount of votes he needs to win the state. That's the whole question, right? Is he asking him to falsify those votes? That sounds like mob talk about a way of getting him over the line in Georgia. Now, as it turns out, it wouldn't have mattered in the overall result. But given he is on tape and recorded by a man who is now the governor, it's a hard case to argue against. Now, he would just say he meant count all the legal votes and, you know, pertain and go out and like exercise democracy. But I don't know, some of the language there is pretty difficult. So it'll be interesting to see. If he loses the election in November, then there is the chance that those cases will come up probably next year and we might see Donald Trump back in court again. And they have more serious charges and more serious punishments.
So is there any documentation that says anywhere, because it is unprecedented, that a president can continue his presidency if he's put in prison?
Yeah, I don't think there's anything that says it's against, unless it's for treason. And again, he would have the option because the president can pardon people, so he can pardon himself and effectively eliminate the charge.
So can he actually pardon himself? Because I was under the impression he can't. A president can't pardon themselves.
It depends on which charge and in which area. And again, this would all be played out in the courts. This hasn't happened. Like, we haven't had a situation. You know, Richard Nixon was the closest we got to something like this happening, and he got pardoned by his successor. So that was kind of taken off the table. There's people that have been vice presidents who've got in trouble before. I think Aaron Burr, one of the early ones, for anyone that knows Hamilton, he was charged with something like treason as well and got off the charges. So this is unprecedented. This is not normal. And so all of this is legal theory that I don't think anyone ever thought would actually have to play out in a court. But we are staring down the face of that may just happen. And that would be up to the Supreme Court, really, which, don't forget, Donald Trump put 3 of those people on the court, and we'll see how they go.
What does it mean moving forward now for Stormy Daniels?
Look, she has been through a lot. It will be interesting to see what she chooses to do. I think she has come out of this. I saw it this morning here. She's done an interview and spoke about what that time was like on the case. You know, it's been really difficult, and she will no doubt have some really difficult times moving forward as well, whether she tries to go down the civil case or civil charges against the president. I don't know what her legal options are without being a lawyer. So, look, she's going to be a household name here, and there are, in a deeply divided country that we have to go back to, there are people that will see her that way forever. I mean, you look at the situation with Monica Lewinsky, who has only sort of found her voice in the last few years, and she speaks about her experience. This is very different and much more public. And I think we'll hear more from Stormy Daniels about that in her own way, I hope.
And lastly, Trump's obviously going to appeal this case. What's the likelihood you think this will get overturned?
Difficult to say. Look, the jury was very quick in returning their verdict. The Trump team will argue that it's in Manhattan. It's a pretty liberal place, and therefore it was hard to find a jury. They went through a lot to get the final people they did. Whether it can be overturned before the election, I don't think there's enough time. Now, things move slow. It's a glacial legal system over here. So, look, I think he knows now his best chance, I think, of avoiding this punishment and potentially further down the line is to win the election. And that would be all of America effectively being the jurors. When they have their say, he said that this is the final verdict to be given on November 5th when they vote over here.
Wow. Crazy America could have a president, ruling the free world that's in prison.
It's remarkable, isn't it?
It's remarkable.
None of this is normal. That's the thing. We've become so desensitized to it. Like, none of this is normal. What happened in 2020 isn't normal, the way that all played out. So we are in some really interesting times, at a time when the globe's pretty vulnerable and we need leadership with democracies. It's a minority sport, and it seems like they're getting fewer, and this one's looking pretty fragile.
We don't have a lot of good choices either, do we? Charles.
One of them's got to win.
Yeah, that's the scary thing. And then it was almost going to be Kanye West, which is worse. Okay, it's time for Accidentally Unfiltered, your most embarrassing story. We've got a very low-key, wholesome one. I was working at an RSL club, and you didn't often get a chance to go to the toilet. This one day, I was absolutely busting. So when I got the chance, I raced down the hall, swung into the bathroom. I would normally check the toilet first, but things were urgent. It was one of those toilets where the door opens outwards. So I raced in, pulled the door shut as I backed into the toilet, ripped my pants down, and as I sat down, I felt something that didn't feel like a toilet seat. I jumped up and screamed. I looked around to see a little boy, no older than 6 years old, staring back up at me. He just looked shocked.
Could you imagine taking your pants off and sitting on a kid? That's fucked.
His mum was in the toilet next door and was like, "Oh my God, I'm so sorry. I didn't shut the door properly because he's only 6. Thinking that I must have just opened it and noticed it there. She doesn't know I sat on him with my pants on. I ripped my pants up and ran back out without going to the toilet. I should have apologized for scaring her son, but I couldn't.
Oh my God, that is
pants.
Traumatizing. I know it was very innocent and not meant to be, but like, I feel for that kid. That kid is not going to be okay.
What's happening?
At
least she didn't start weeing. Imagine she sat down and started weeing.
I can't. Do you know what happened to me on the weekend? So we're at the pub in Byrne. I'm on the toilet doing a number 2. And Lola, which it's not my fault. Sometimes you've got to take the kids to the toilet with you because she needed to go. I didn't know I needed to do a number 2. It hit me as I was doing a wee.
As it always
does. And she just opens the door and fucking walks out. Just walks out. And the door is too far. I was like, Lola, don't you touch it. Don't you touch the door.
You can't get up mid-snap.
And she just opens it and goes, bye, mummy, going back to daddy. Walks out. And there I am. This poor woman runs up. She's like, I'll keep the door shut. She doesn't know that I'm doing a poo.
Dude, not just keep the door shut. Go and stop a small child
I was
from walking around.
like, at this point, let her go. Let her rehome herself. No, not at all. I don't mean that.
I love your disclaimers. I don't mean that she should be rehomed.
I know.
You don't need to do
Sometimes I worry that people think I don't love being a mum. No. But I really love being a mum. It's the best thing ever.
They know that you're not actually putting your kids on Facebook Marketplace.
Yeah.
And people don't believe
Used. Free to good home.
No,
pick up.
Make a bit of cash.
Pick up today.
Okay.
Pick up straight away, please.
On curbside. Won't be home. Won't be home. Honesty box, leave donation.
All right, suck and sweet for the week. I mean, that could have been my suck. Britt, what was your suck for the week?
Coming to like a really hard realization that Ben and I are not always going to be able to share food. So like a big part of my existence and what I wanted from a relationship was obviously trust, love, respect.
And someone to share food
But I
with.
also wanted someone to share food with.
I get that.
I want to be able to order a few.
100.
Hey,
Same.
you have your bit and we'll swap halfway. Like, because I want to taste everything.
We're so far into that in our relationship that Matt just knows what I would order. So he'll just get a thing that will complement my order.
Yeah, so Ben will be like, well, if you want that, then order 2 meals. And I was like, what? But I just want to try some of yours. Like, I don't want a whole other meal. And I had this realization on the weekend that he'd be more happy to pay for an extra meal than share some stuff.
Joey doesn't share food!
Not everything, but sometimes he's like, I also feel like the chicken. But I was like, but I'm getting the chicken. But he's like, yeah, but I also want it. And I'm like, fuck my life.
And you're like, we can't order 2 chickens.
but we
crazy.
did. We ordered 2 chickens. Can you believe it? That is crazy talk.
That's
The same
crazy.
meal, we ordered 2.
I hate that.
I know.
Why would we both eat the same thing when we could eat each other's?
Eat each other. Full stop. So my sweet was just the fact that I went away. I had a really wholesome weekend with Ben. We're still falling in love. Oh, I made myself sick. Cut that. We had a good weekend. We fucked a lot. Cut that as well. Let me find my feet, okay?
Leave them both in, please. All right,
Hang on, my weekend was. Hang on, I have a real one.
Oh, I thought that was it.
Nah, cool. That's it. Leave it.
Okay.
Just gonna move on.
My suck for the week. We have had a drip in the window. What's it called? A leaking window. We've had a leaking window at the front of our house, and we got it repaired recently. And over the weekend, whilst we were away, was the very first time we've had like proper big storms. And the leaking window is not a leak anymore. We had an indoor fucking water feature. So the window had been installed incorrectly, and now the whole wall has to be taken out of the front of our house and redone, which is like, we've already been through that process for 2 weeks, and now we've got another 2 weeks of doing it. So that is hell on earth.
That's crazy.
Actually, it's not really. But it's inconvenient. And it's more inconvenient because my sweet is Matt's mum's back from her French trip that she went over to France. She did 2.5 months of French lessons and French speaking.
Did
and
she have any French rendezvous?
No.
Do you reckon she did and she'll just never tell you?
No, I reckon she'd tell me if she got boned by a French man.
Not boned.
If she got a bit of baguette.
But did she even... salami?
What?
Did she get some, like a stick of salami?
No, that's...
Not sliced.
A
stick.
No, she didn't. But she would tell me, but no, that's like, she thinks that those days are long gone for her. But she's back. And so the reason why it's even more of a suck is because that is her bedroom. So the front room in our house that had the leaking window is her bedroom. And so we wanted to get everything repaired before she came home. And now she's home and she's not going to have a bedroom to be in for a couple of weeks. So it's just very inconveniently timed, but I'm really happy that she's home. And I really adore that I have such a awesome relationship with my mother-in-law, because I think most of the time you always hear horror show stories around people's mother-in-laws, but mine's just the best. I won the
She's
mother-in-law
great.
jackpot.
Yeah, we love Ellie.
We
I
love
love Ellie.
Ellie.
She's almost like my
You'll have her if you could take her.
mother-in-law.
Anyway, guys, that's it from us. We hope you enjoyed the episode.
Don't forget, tell your mum, tell your dad, tell your dog, tell your friends, and share the love because
We love love!